Commission welcomes comments from all persons. However, please recognize the Commission receives evidence through a formal process. The hearings or investigations for all matters that will be discussed at this agenda have already been conducted, and draft orders or memoranda have been prepared on the basis of the record created at the hearing or on the final results of staff's investigations. The Commission appreciates any feedback from the public. The comments made today cannot be treated as formal evidence. Members of the public desiring to comment, please state your name on the record. Comments shall only address topics that are relevant to or within the authority of the Commission. Speakers shall not repeat prior comments made during this agenda. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker. A speaker's allotted 2 minutes shall not be transferred to another speaker. When the allotted 2 minutes has ended, the individual must stop speaking immediately. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak in Carson City?
Yes, Chairman, I have a number of cards. Do you want me to go ahead and get started?
You bet.
Okay, first card I have is Mr. Bruce Kittis.
Thank you, Chairman Birkinshaw and Commissioners. Until your modified final order was posted late yesterday afternoon, I was simply going to say thank you, and we support the stipulation by the AG and NV Energy. However, in this convoluted process, it was no surprise the staff found all kinds of objections. Of course, these hearings are a result of the staff ignoring what was happening in other states and not providing an alternative meter when this program was initiated. I feel like we're being coerced to pay, but if I must pay for an alternate meter for the 4-year period, I want an analog meter. I'll even pay to keep the one I've had for 14 years, or they can change it for another analog meter. I don't care, but I want an analog meter. Were you not offended that after all the testimony and having read your order, that NV Energy did not voluntarily disclose that they submitted a digital meter that emitted a signal every 2 seconds and had no encryption? Is there no penalty for deception? How can I possibly trust a digital meter that they would install? They have removed over 1 million analog meters. They have already stated they can supply the analog meters for the 4-year period. And it's on page 1324, the draft order, the final order, as in its selection process, NV Energy is strongly encouraged to choose the meter that has the most customer acceptance. It appears that you have been listening to accommodate those of us, and we thank you, but we really would like you to require the analog meter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kittis. Next speaker I have is Matthew Cheddar. Oh, you can sit there, sir. Just make sure you turn the microwave.
Commissioner, Chairman, whatever options or option is chosen should address consumer concerns, which include safety issues related to smart meters, microwave broadcast, pervasive exposure, fires that have been reported, remote connect and disconnect consequences. In other words, a keystroke error, potentially turning off someone's oxygen meter. The privacy issues that were discussed, including intrusive monitoring and billing issues. In other words, billing should not be punitive if an alternative to smart meters is selected. Maintaining analog meters at neutral cost vis-a-vis smart meters would address at least some of these concerns, and I would like to say thank you in advance for your consideration of the public's concern in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheddar. Next speaker I have is Jim Falk.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, Commissioners. I came over from Fallon to primarily to ask you this question. Who among you can tell me honestly that this whole smart meter thing has nothing to do with United Nations Agenda 21. It's an international project, and flawed from the start, continues, more flaws continue to come up involving this. I certainly agree with the earlier speakers. This will not save money, it's a waste of money. You say it'll save energy. If I had a widget factory and there was more demand for the widgets that I could produce, I would either expand my line or somebody else would come in and provide more widgets. If we need more power, why can't we set up more power stations? Now you say that they foul the air. You bought into these green programs, the climate change baloney. A little common sense and a little true science would show how big a mistake you've made here as well as making other places. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
I have a letter to drop off to you.
Okay. The next speaker I have is Karen Sands.
Good morning, Happy New Year. Thank you for hearing me today. My name is Karen Sands. I'm in customer service at Nevada Energy. They now as a customer. I have been waiting for the return of an analog meter to the home I live in Reno. We relocated from California because of my husband's job in July of 2012. And Nevada Energy knows my story from my experience in California that we cannot have a smart meter, nor can we have a digital meter, which is also a radio frequency meter. It is unacceptable because I have to have an analog meter for a lot of reasons for my family. Nevada Energy, you must stipulate in the opt-out that we can have an analog meter if we so choose. This is why I am on the refusal list for a smart meter and a digital meter. Thank you in advance for the return of an analog meter on my home. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sands. Ken Kopi? Sorry. And I'll apologize in advance right now because
Just be ready to go and everything will be all right.
Kathy, or Kathy.
Well, you're fond of mine from the past. Good morning. Nice to see you again. Thank you for your consideration previously about for the changes that are there. I have an analog meter now, and I see no reason why I should have to pay to take the meter out, to put a meter in as a substitute. The analog meter I have works just fine, and I think that that should be there, and I think that NV Energy should not be asking me to pay them more money to change something that's been working all the time that I've lived in Reno. So it should be working very fine. As an aside to that, as I brought up the last time I was here, Nevada Energy finds a lot of ways to spend a lot of money. And yesterday, while I was having lunch with Ross Miller, I noticed that his campaign funds, he got $5,000 from Nevada Energy. That $5,000 donation from my money, from my fees, could be very well spent on taking care of NV Energy's problem with changing or costing for changing meters. That would be 600 meters for the first month for the installation fee that they're trying to assess on the ratepayers. If Nevada Energy and, unfortunately, the PUC weren't in such good cooperation with each other, this monopoly wouldn't have this hold over my life. But it just seems that everywhere I go, government wants to lead me instead of me leading government. That doesn't work in the United States. It did not work in the United States of America. It probably will work from here on in. So I think it's time for us to go back. live in a free country, and we should have the option. If this was such a good thing, Nevada Energy would be doing this at no cost. And when I visited the Tracy plant a few months ago, Nevada Energy, the engineer over there, told me that, well, we can control the money going, or the power going from here, but we can't control it on the other end. But with a smart meter, now we can put out the production and we can limit it at the other end if we were so to do. So I'd appreciate it if you would vote for an analog meter and put that in your order, analog. Thank you.
Sir. Next speaker, Joanna Schumacher.
I want to thank you in advance for reconsidering what's going on here. I would urge you to support the stipulation with regards to the analog portion of this stipulation. However, I believe that the fees are excessive and in some cases unnecessary. A fee for you to take out a meter and replace a meter when it's not necessary seems to be very wasteful. Removing a perfectly functioning analog meter from my home is a disgrace. And I believe that the fees that they are suggesting are a double dip. And I thank you in advance for considering this, and I hope that you will support the stipulation with regards to the analog portion. However, I would hope that you would also recognize that there is some leeway that needs to be given on the fee portion. Thank you.
Next speaker I have is Jane Lyon.
Hi, good morning. I appreciate the chance to be here. I want you to know that I am here to represent many other citizens who are unable to be here. They just cannot pick up in the middle of the week and come down here. So I do represent more than just one person. Personally, I have been attending these meetings since late 2012. And each time I have stressed that I want to keep my analog meter. Retaining an analog meter makes it easy for NV Energy, as there's no need to change it out. There's no need for them to do anything, and my meter can be left in place. As to any fee, I believe there's little reason for any fee at all. As you heard previously, it really, if it's there, it's there, and there's no change, no fee necessary. But where it does remain in other states, such as California, and some states in the East and even in the Midwest, there's only a minimal charge at all, if any. And I hope that that can be worked out here as well. I want to thank the PUC for finally hearing what many of us have been saying for a long time. We want to keep the analog meter. I hope you will specifically designate the term analog meter, and that you will reconsider about a fee that is, if it's anything, it's minimal. And thank you very much for listening to us. Finally, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Richard Swiker.
Good morning, and thanks once again for the opportunity to come here and give you some public comment on some of these pertinent issues. The game plan changed last night when I became aware of the draft order that you guys just recently filed. I know that's reflecting your potential thoughts on the matter. So most of the comments I have were in opposition to the staff document, but I think I can skip through nearly all of them. I guess I would make two key points, three maybe. One is that the stipulation is in accord with the Commission's twofold mission to protect the interests of the utility and the interests of the public. Here you have both parties saying we agree on these issues. Therefore, I believe the stipulation should be adopted. And for that matter, both parties even agreed that a rehearing is appropriate. For some reason, the commission proposes to ignore the stipulation, but was at least correct, in my view, in dismissing the staff's opposition to the petitions and so on. So I'll say this about the staff's opposition, cutting it short. The opposition by the staff was improper, inconsistent, completely disingenuous, and baseless. They were improperly opposing the efforts by these two parties to reach a compromise in the best interests of both. They were, in fact, working against the twofold mission of the Public Utilities Commission. Some of their facts are just out of this world. The staff makes the statement, there are no facts available that support the adoption of analog meters as the opt-out metering technology. This is patently absurd and disingenuous. It's well known that analog meters are adequate to the job, from the simple fact that the industry has been using them for 60 years. NV Energy even stipulated that the analogs are feasible. We know that NV Energy is now sitting on roughly 1.3 million functioning analog meters that they have retrofitted. Have you ever thought about the fact that many millions more surplus analog meters are available from California? Finally, NV Energy has the capacity to refurbish and recalibrate analog meters and obviously has had this capacity for 60 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schweitzer. Next speaker is Mary Laren.
Good morning, Dr. Mary Laren. I'm here today to speak in support of the original stipulation by BCP and NVE. This is what we've all been working for over a year, so for the first time when NVE is willing to work with us, the consumers, and compromise on a reasonable agreement. This is a win-win situation. So I'm respectfully asking the commissioners to change the draft order or approve the stipulation and require the analog meter as the NSMO. The language in the draft order, strongly encouraged, has no legal meaning and is not enforceable. It allows NV Energy to change their mind at any time. They have enough meters that perform the same function, and these will reduce upfront charges. It doesn't matter if they're not produced domestically. None of our electronics are, and there's no evidence that they're more expensive to maintain. The commission, the consumer advocate, BCP, and NV Energy agree. What more do we need? Now the commission doesn't agree. Really? What's going on here? You commissioners have the opportunity and the authority to solve our problems. Approve the stipulation or change the draft order to require analogs without any wishy-washy language. Then we can all get on with our lives. Lastly, and sincerely, I want to thank Chairman Burtonshaw and Commissioner Wagner for confronting the analog issue in the hopes of doing the right thing, as stated by Rebecca Wagner. Now NV Energy agrees. Why can't the commissioners agree with all of us and approve the analog? Thank you.
Ms. Laren. Next speaker is John Snaddick, please.
Thank you. Dr. John Snedek, MD from Reno. I'm here to support the stipulation by VCP and NV Energy and the proposed draft order only if the Commission states in writing that the analog meter is the alternative meter. Meaningless wiggle worm language within the draft order, such as strongly encouraged, would be open to endless interpretation. This loophole language is large enough to drive a utility truck through. Again, the PUCN, with their myopic vision, has lost sight of the bigger picture, one of satisfying both public and NV Energy concerns. The draft order must state that the analog meter is the alternative meter, period. Now is the time for you folks to move forward, do the right thing, and approve the analog meter as the alternative meter of choice for the opt-out program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Barry Kane.
Hello, and I want to thank you for listening to the concerns of the people of Nevada. We want to be able to have analog meters for those who opt out of smart meters. We urge you to vote to require analog meters and preferably for us to be able to keep the one we already have. But in any case, we want analog meters for those who opt out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. That concludes the public comment that I have in Carson City. Is there anybody else in Carson that needs to fill out a form and wants to do public comment? Okay, Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you in Las Vegas.
Okay. Bob Weber. Mr. Weber? William Gutowski?
Chairman, I think Mr. Weaver is in hearing room B.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Mr. Gutowski. We'll call Mr. Weber back.
I just had a couple of questions. I wanted to ask about Nevada Energy Rule 16-1, titled Installation of Equipment that is not utility owned in utility seal compartments or enclosures for residential customers. Section B, paragraph 1 reads, all such equipment must be properly rated for the intended installation, be UL listed, and meet all applicable National Electrical Code requirements as amended by local building officials. The UL listing label must be plainly visible and appropriate for the type of equipment. So my question is, why is there no UL listing on my smart meter? And why is it that when I asked a county building inspector, he basically said no comment? So I would like the opportunity to purchase a UL listed analog meter, and I'll pay the cost myself and have it installed by Nevada Energy or anybody else. Because if that doesn't meet their standard, their own meter doesn't meet their own standard of a UL listing, you know, why is it on my house? Does it meet
You're more than welcome to talk.
NFPA?
You're more than welcome to have this conversation with our consumer division.
Okay, I'm new to this process, I apologize, I don't know.
That's fine. Our consumer division should be able to help you with that.
Right, because, you know, if it doesn't meet the 2008 National Electrical Code, which is adopted by the state of Nevada currently, they haven't adopted the 2011 standard yet. If that meter doesn't meet those standards, why is it on my house? So, I would appreciate any help from Nevada Energy. I'll pay whatever the cost is to purchase my own meter.
They actually have some representatives back there that I'm sure will be willing to talk to you as well.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
You bet, Mr. Gutowski. Mr. Weaver's not in the movie? Okay. Teresa Marie Moorhead?
Commissioner, I've lived in Las Vegas for over 16 years. I chose my home because it had the lowest EMF reading one could hope for, so that I may heal from personal traumas I face both physically and emotionally. I had the EMF measured again since the smart meter was installed against my will and consent, and the levels have skyrocketed. I do not have cable or Wi-Fi at my home, so this is not a factor. I am outraged that my rights have been negated. You have no idea of the detrimental, long-term effects this is having in our personal lives and community, and the lawsuits that will surely ensue. I should not have to build a Faraday cage around my bed to sleep at night, nor pay a higher electric bill to cover the costs of a meter that is harmful to my health, the health of my family, and my community. I demand to have the analog meter put back. The Public Utilities Commission is supposed to protect the citizens of Nevada, and this is a direct assault on all of us. Thank you.
This is a regular agenda. There's other business to be conducted. So I expect a professional demeanor in this room. Jonathan Friedrich.
My name is Commissioner Jonathan Friedrich, and I'm speaking as a citizen, private citizen. I'm here today, along with all these other citizens, requesting that you commissioners follow the lead and advice of the Bureau of Consumer Protection that was agreed to in the previous stipulation order between NV Energy and the BCP. I agree with a portion of that stipulation that allows ratepayers to maintain their existing analog meters, but disagree with charging a monthly meter reading fee and charging for an analog meter. In the current draft order dated January 8, 2013, the PUC is shirking its responsibilities by allowing NV Energy to pick and choose the type of meter they want to use. The PUC must clearly state in this new order that analog meters are to be used. The current draft order states that the PUC strongly encourages the use of analog meters. This language does not mandate the use of an analog meter by those of us who have opted out and want to retain the analog meters, or who want the smart meters removed and replaced with an analog meter. Those that still have their analog meters must not be charged to retain them. Those that want the smart meter removed must be allowed to have an analog meter restored. I, along with you commissioners, took an oath when we were appointed as commissioners to uphold the constitutions of the United States, Nevada, and the laws of this state. Therefore, be mindful of the public's request and not succumb to the wishes of a public utility that you are required to oversee and regulate. Do not let NV Energy control this commission's decisions. I want to remind the commissioners of NRS 703.151, which spells out your duties as commissioners. 1. Protect, further, and serve the public interest. Do not violate your oath of office. Follow the law. Do not violate it. That is your duty. Thank you.
Kay Rodriguez.
Thank you for hearing me. I have a copy of the request that I gave the Nevada Energy on January 12, 2012 regarding removal of the smart meter. Now, the Public Utilities Commission is to protect the public. NV Energy wants higher rates because the customers have had a break in the weather. This doesn't diminish the value of the shareholders, just the return. Price is only important to buyers and sellers, and believe me, they won't be selling. Smart meters have affected users' health. See printouts tendered herein. Smart meter removal has begun as from the Canadian Free Press regarding the problems of smart meters, and the Free Press can say what they know and know what is true, not the fear that you find in the United States press today. I speak for the elderly, the infirm, the poor, the uneducated, and uninformed. That is also the role of the PUC. Do your job. Let the shareholders of Nevada Energy find a better place to put their money if this enough is not enough. Enough! Smart meters information under Canadian Free Press. Anybody wants to know how to get it on the internet, it's wonderful. Here is my letter, and here is the information for living, breathing people. Thank you.
Tim Stevens? Tim Stevens? Evans?
Sorry, I didn't understand you.
Good morning. My name is Tim Stebbins and I live in Henderson. I currently have an analog meter installed at my house. At this point in time, I am satisfied with this meter and I would like to retain it. And looking at the PUCN staff report, there's emphasis made there that says customers must be advised in order to make informed decisions. I agree with that premise. I believe all customers or ratepayers should have the right to be factual information of the pros and cons of the various types of electrical meters that may and be empowered to make the decisions. Thousands and thousands of Nevada taxpayers were denied that right by NV Energy. They were lied to, bullied, threatened, and otherwise coerced into involuntary allowing a so-called smart meter to be installed on their property. This was definitely not an informed decision for those ratepayers. Freedom of choice is a fundamental principle in America, and the courts in various cases have upheld this principle. In order to restore fairness and equity to ratepayers, NV Energy, or the PUCN, should inform all current ratepayers who have a smart meter installed that they may have that smart meter replaced with a meter of the type was on their property before the smart meter was installed at no charge. After a reasonable period of time, 1 to 2 years, all ratepayers will be informed of their option to retain their current meter, switch to a smart meter, or have some other alternative type of meter installed on their property. This informational message should include all the pros and cons of those choices of all types of meters, and including any costs applicable to their choices determined by the PUCN. This will be a reasonable, good faith effort to allow all taxpayers to make an informed decision. Since NV Energy was the entity that originally denied freedom of choice to many taxpayers, NV Energy should absorb all costs and expenses of this program. This should be done by prudent management choices to adjust staffing levels, adjust wage, salary, and bonus policies, and even dividends and to stockholders and shareholders if necessary. The burden should not be placed on any ratepayers. Thank you.
Rudy Nelson?
Good morning. I agree that maybe we definitely should not have a smart meter, and I'll tell you why. The current general rate reflects only the cost of an analog system. Yet I have a smart meter on my house, not to my knowledge, because I don't want it. But I'm charged at the rate for reading. You don't read my meter. Some people have a smart meter, they don't even have a billing. You put it on E-line, and they pay it that way. Yet they're charged, and they're really unaware, because one of my neighbors said she didn't know that. So they charge me an extra. I've been paying for a meter I didn't want, so the fee that I should have an additional one is outrageous. I think that the NV Energy has misrepresented the charges, have overcharged me. They have misled us by not even, when these were first announced, that we didn't have an option. There has been deception, a swindle, a gouging, a cheating, a fraud, a dupe, and finally a fleecing of the customers. Because they have enough money, there's no reason why they have to have a charge for me to get my analog meter back. And an extra charge is absolutely outrageous. I'm paying already too much. You don't read my meter. You send me a bill, I don't even know how much it costs to mail it because there's no stamp on it. I pay 45 cents, but I'm sure they don't pay 45 cents for each billing they send me. So it's absolutely ridiculous. I urge you, number one, that I can have my analog meter back, which I have not had for 20 months. I think it's ridiculous that I have to beg and plead to get it back. And number two, I don't want the extra fee. Thank you.
Stephen Commander?
Good morning. My name's Steve Commander. I'm a senior citizen with a fixed income, like many of the people here. I'm also a reporter for the Breaking News Journal, and I'm here as a senior citizen, and I'm going to take a different approach because I've been listening to all the very positive comments that people are making. My approach is going to be following. I do have an analog meter, and every month I get a bill that has an enormous number of fees associated with it. My bill is a particular amount, and after all the fees, my bill is 28% higher than the actual bill itself. Senior citizens do not get a 28% increase in their Social Security or anything else. For example, we have a temporary green power fee, a renewable energy fee, an energy efficiency fee, a local government fee, a universal energy charge. This is nonsense. We the people are in charge. We the people want you to listen to us and do what we want to get done. We're tired of $5,000 donations going to people like Ross Miller to get you in charge of what we want. Thank you.
Leah Gaspari.
Hi, my name is Leah Gaspari, and I'm from Indian Springs. And I had a smart meter put in June of 2012. And I really didn't want to get a smart meter put in, so I called. And the woman that I spoke with on the phone, her name was Stacy, and it was back in April. And I said, I would really like to keep my analog meter. And she was kind of Gestapo about it. She's like, oh, you will be penalized, and you will eventually have to get a smart meter put in anyways. So basically, she said to just give up. And therefore, okay, so there was a gentleman that came out in July to read our smart meter, which I thought was odd. And then we didn't get a bill for October, November, or December. And we called and we said, well, where's our bill? How are we going to make our monthly payment? And they said, oh, we're estimating it every time we call. Well, now we got a $600 bill in the mail. And so where we were normally paying $100 a month on our, because I live in a mobile home, and my heat is propane, it's not electric. Therefore, I don't use very much electricity, and therefore, $300 a month that went up for those 3 months, that's crazy. So I don't think that these smart meters are so smart. Plus, I'm also concerned about the whole EMF thing. I don't want to get those extra EMFs in my home. We get enough in this world on a daily basis. You know, I don't want to have those EMFs around my home. But yeah, they need to straighten out their billing. They really do. And I would really appreciate it if that would get under control.
Ms. Gaspari, have you had a chance to talk with our consumer division?
No.
I would urge you to talk with Mr. Sewell.
Okay, great.
William Carter.
Please come. Okay.
I'm William Carter. I speak as a Nevadan. My mother was born in Tonopah and raised in the London County campus in Rochester. Her father also was a 1911 graduate of Mackey School. On my desk sits a baseball glove, which was from the 1895 UNR team by Howard Warner. I'm concerned that the Public Utilities Commission should be the Public Utilities Commission. So often we see the FDA as pimps for the drug companies. We see that the regulatory agencies actually become agents for the institutions they're supposed to be regulating. And I'd like to see that not happen. I think an assumption that when big business wants something that they're many times devious, especially the utilities companies, especially PG&E, you don't care about people's lives and how they're affected. And I think the EMS do exist to Today I was telling a friend that I was coming here, and she started talking about, well, how about your laptop? And so I can turn off the Wi-Fi. She says, well, there's still the EMS. I have it on the lap. And she tells me that it affects a rather personal part of my body. So I think that EMFs are real. I've always had a great relationship with NV Energy. They look over my fence and read my meter. I've never allowed them in my yard. All of a sudden I saw that I have this new smart meter. They had to jump my fence to do that, and I felt kind of violated. I hope that the Public Utility Commission will emphasize the public part of it and protect this. I speak as my dad. Thank you very much.
Wendy Ellis. Wendy Ellis.
I wasn't going to run, I was supposed to be dignified.
Buddy Ellis, I live in Las Vegas, and I still have my original analog meter. And I see no reason to have them come out. I mean, I'm here in support of the stipulation agreement that NV Energy and the DCP arrived at. But I just find it kind of odd that for 16 years I've lived in my house, NV Energy has never had the slightest bit of concern or curiosity or problem with my meter, and then suddenly the PUC staff document, they're objecting, oh, analog meters do not store interval data. Well, that's the bottom line what they want. They want to do time of use pricing to accommodate solar and wind. And I don't even want to get into that because it's so dirty. It stores in that interval data. I get my interval in 1 month. Last month they read my meter, and again they're going to come this month and read my meter. The interval's 1 month. That's enough for me to make an informed decision. But I don't feel that I should have to pay for them to come out and pretend like they're doing something, you know, to replace a meter that I already have. It's just like, leave it alone. If you want to come and just visually inspect it, make sure I'm not stealing electrons, I have no problem with that. But to charge me, no, they haven't been concerned with these meters. And as for having the concern on page 5, line 12, whether NV Energy has enough analog meters which are not being produced domestically. How many analog meters have they torn off the houses in Nevada, in California, what are they doing with them? Are they not environmentally friendly? I mean, are they throwing them away? Are they destroying them? That's kind of wasteful. So I go along with the whole, what you call it, stipulation? Yeah, stipulation that was like that with NV Energy and BCP. And I want to keep my own meter. Those of us who have our meters shouldn't have to pay. For all I know, they'll come out and break my meter. Because if you just leave it alone, it's fine. It's fine. 1 month interval.
David Smith.
Thanks.
On the way.
Good morning. Well, it appeared that we were getting close with a stipulation between the parties, the public and the energy company. And staff, for some reason, threw in some kind of weird answer that I won't bother to address. It was addressed very eloquently by a speaker earlier up north. And then we had the commission's proposed draft order, which for some reason goes against most of what was in the stipulation between the parties. So we get back to the idea of why not have the stipulation, a rehearing, address the issues that they feel are still left, they, the public, and the energy company. And for those that still have their analog meters, why should there be any fee? And there was nothing in there about the option of having people read their meters, which was discussed in the past, and for some reason keeps being passed over. So there should really be no fees. For in today's world where it's so easy to provide the information via almost certified means, via photographs, to them via email, snail mail, directly loaded into webs, that the websites that the energy company could have. And if there's people that have a problem with this, primarily elderly people maybe, that they think can't do this, there's many citizen groups that would help those people if necessary, if they wanted to, so the energy company could provide an option. We either charge you to read your meter, or you read it and provide us with the information. What is wrong with these concepts? This is what the public wants. So what is with this draft order, this proposed draft order that is ignoring all those things? That's all I have to say.
NTEF.
Hi, Commissioners. Let's hope this is the last time we have to endure each other. You will notice new faces, our numbers are out there. You have let NV Energy control the deployment of smart meters, and look where that wound up. Here with two different dockets. You're looking at the same thing if you let them control the NSMO. Your draft order is nothing short of a gray order that is subject to individual interpretation, whether it's NVE, VCP, PUC, or ratepayers. Make it black or white. There is no need to ask what the ratepayers want. There are lists of those who want to keep their analogs and those who want them replaced. What is so difficult in seeing what the public wants? Remove the option of NVE trying to find a meter that you specified. Do not give them an out to use the digital. We are demanding a hard copy order fully delineating the analogs as the only opt-out. We have over 25,000 people on unemployment, and there needs to be a payment plan for the opt-out for those who want to opt out but are struggling with the measly amounts they receive from unemployment. They have this, NVE has this for deposits. There should be the same offer to those with tight budgets regarding the opt-out. Stop dragging your feet. We aren't going away, and only you have the power to cease this ongoing nightmare. We will not stop fighting for the analogs. Otherwise, welcome to another year of increased aggravation for all of us. Thank you.
NV stops. Go ahead, Ms. Fazio.
Okay. NVE stops smart meters. Commissioners, I was all set to support the STIP and end this almost two-year nightmare until I read your draft. Don't think because we're not attorneys we would not pick up on the little we're going to screw the anti-smart meter people. The STIP specifically references the analog. Your pseudo order gives the entire control of non-smart meters in the hands of NVE, with the bone thrown in about strongly encouraged to have the ratepayers have an imaginary voice. You need to specifically spell out that the people on the opt-out list will be the ones determining the alternative meter. You need to specifically state how every ratepayer will be notified about the opt-out. That worthless suggestion of posting on yours, NVE, and VCP websites on November 27th was immediately removed when I sent an email to Jan Cohen that you can't laterally apply that every person has access to a computer. Now you have a short generic update page. As I said in my email, and yes, I have it on the PUC Watchdog's website, the only assurance that every ratepayer will know about the opt-out is on their bill. Remember, if it's not written, it never happened, as you have thrown that up at us, and now we are demanding it of you. If it's not spelled out, this is not going to end. Commissioners, I'm sure you're nice people, but we've had it up to here with you, and I'm sure you've had it up to here with us. Put the analogs in, give us what we want, and let us go our merry way. Thank you. Angel DeFazio as a ratepayer. The critical characteristics identified by the Commission should be the analog. None of this strongly encouraged. On November 27th, you stated that the digital meters would resolve the radiation issue that we were concerned about. Apparently, your staff didn't do their research or chose to ignore the fact that digital meters have a switching mode power supply that produces dirty electricity that elicits more health concerns. Therefore, by using a digital meter, you are in fact lying to us about the emissions, and that does in fact not assuage our health concerns, as the dirty electricity results in low-frequency emission, not attenuated/reduced by the filters. Solid-state non-wireless meters may also use a switching mode power supply, which still would produce dirty electricity. I'm assuming your engineer tech department did the research. So have we. Just because there's no radiation from transmission does not negate the fact that there are other sources of radiation and health concerns. And failure to acknowledge this is nothing short of lying to us about the safety of this potential alternative digital meter. Do you want to really keep dragging it on? If it hasn't dawned on you, I am determined. I have spent 2 years fighting this. If I have to go another 2, I will. We want the analogs. Put it in the order. We are agreeing to the new proposed fees. Do what you're supposed to do, because under NAC 703.115, you have the authority when deviation is in the public interest. This is the public interest. Do your job. Thank you.
Sheila Sterling.
Good morning, here we are again. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here today representing over 2,000 Nevada citizens who are also ratepayers. They receive a newsletter that I put out, and they agree that the language in the stipulation in the order must be that NV Energy be required to have the analog meter as an opt-out choice. We all know if that language is not in there, it is not going to happen. Our neighbors in California pay no initial fee. They simply call up and say, I want the smart meter off my home. The next day, somebody comes out. They have an analog meter installed. They pay $10 a month for that. And I would strongly advise that it would be wise if Nevada adopted the same kind of program. Your oath is to protect and serve the public. We ask that you honor your oath. We're asking that you honor the Constitution of the United States. We are asking that you honor the Nevada Constitution, which was also part of your oath. We ask that you require the analog meter to be the opt-out choice. We support the order. Finally, we're sort of talking. We do support the order if the language states very clearly that the analog meter is the choice for the opt-out. So please, we are asking once again, we've been fighting this for what? It's been well over a year. We've pleaded, we've given you every information, scientifically, medically, everything that you've needed. We are asking nothing more than you do the job that you were put here to do, protect and serve the people of Nevada. We are counting on you to do the right thing. We are counting on you to stand up for the people of Nevada. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for the stipulation.
Mike Hazard.
Good morning, Commission. Mike Hazard, Las Vegas. I want to quote three sections of documentation that's been presented by PUC and the VCP and Nevada Energy. The first one occurs, that came on 12/17/2012, and in the petition for reconsideration, the VCP said, the petition asked the Commission to revisit its November 27, 2012 order approving Nevada Energy's non-standard metering tariff to adopt an analog meter as the non-standard meter and establish different upfront recurring costs, so forth and so on. So they're asking for the analog meter there. In documentation presented by Nevada Energy on December 28, 2011, they showed that there were over 114,560 analog meters in inventory. That's 8.5 times what they need to supply the people on the opt-out list. On January the 8th, when you submitted your modified order, you stated in line 21, the Commission finds that there is good cause and is in the public interest to grant DCP's petition for reconsideration as it pertains to those portions of the November 27th order. Also in that same order, on line 11, it says, although Nevada Energy maintains that there are drawbacks to the continued use of analog meters, including the fact that they are no longer domestically manufactured, Nevada Energy believes that the analog meters can be utilized for a period of 4 years. So they, in essence, have agreed to that. So it is with merit that we now have a request from the DCP, the ratepayers of this state, and an acceptance from NVE to do what they have asked. And we are asking you now to modify line 24 of your modified order to reflect that an analog meter is part of the opt-out, and specifically in its selection process, in the last line of that statement, in the selection process, Nevada Energy, instead of strongly encouraged, that should be deleted, and the words required to choose the analog meter as one of the choices for the NSMO that has the most customer acceptance. Thank you.
Joyce Hazard.
Good morning. Ditto what Mike said, except I'm a little different. I have a question for you, all of you. Today, can you, as of today, change your modified order to say what we just asked in the part in number 21 to say that NV Energy is required to use the analog?
I'm not going to answer your question. We'll discuss it when we deliberate. I have several responses to what we talked about today, but I think it's probably more appropriate in the discussion than on the commissioners.
My other point is this. In your per Rule 17, it allows a yearly inspection at no fee. I would think somehow this applies to us that already have the analog meter, that if we have an analog meter and to come out and inspect it to make sure it's okay, that should negate any charge for coming to change out a meter. But of course, we have the monthly fee that Nevada Power is asking at. But I just think it's ridiculous to come and take out a perfectly good working analog on my house and put another one on when you have Rule 17 that already says every year you can get a free test of your meter. So I just wanted to point that out to you. And as she said, SDG&E has a no install and a minimum monthly fee. And so we're just asking that you do specify an analog meter and maybe revisit Rule 17 for those who already have an analog meter on their house. Thank you.
Carol Zimmerman.
Good morning, my name is Carol Zimmerman. I'm a resident of Sun City Anthem, a large senior community in Henderson, Nevada. As a member of the opt-out group, I respectfully request that the commission require the analog meter to be the replacement meter for the opt-out program. I prefer to retain the analog meter that I already have on my house, and since my house was built in 2002, it is unfair for Nevada Energy to charge me and others in the opt-out program to remove and replace the analog meter I already have and to charge additional fees to have my analog meter read, inasmuch as I already pay a $10 per month service charge for that purpose. Thank you for your consideration and the requests of all citizens who have spoken here and in Carson City today. Thank you.
Colonel Robert Frank.
Morning, Madam Chairman, Commissioners. I've spoken to you 5 times before, and you know how strongly I feel about the smart meter program not being capable of legally mandated on the citizens of Nevada. I believe that the Constitution protects our privacy and that it cannot be mandated. So therefore, I have no choice but to disagree with the draft order and say that parts of the stipulation seem to make sense, but it should be at no cost to the taxpayer, the ratepayer, and it should be no cost for the usage. That's the way it's been for decades, and there's no reason to change that financial situation. And as has been previously pointed out, we're already paying for the meter reading services, so to charge us again, as the BCP has pointed out, is outrageous. I'm still very, very worried about the Commission position to allow Nevada Energy to make it mandatory for smart meters. Obviously, meters have to be mandatory. How else would they charge us for our usage? It's not an issue of meters being mandatory. It's an issue of what do they need in terms of features beyond reading and reporting and billing us. The smart meter computer components and networking components are outrageously expansion into the services. The fact has been shown that these extra features that cause it to be called smart have cost a lot of money. Taxpayers' monies in terms of buying it. They're costing Nevada Energy millions of dollars to install them, to service them, and to maintain them. People that get smart meters are not being charged for these extra costs. That is outrageously unfair to charge people who opt out to be charged, but the people with smart meters do not be charged. This suggests fraud by Nevada Energy to me, and I think you ought to take that very seriously. Thank you.
That was my last card for this portion of the comments section. And we now move to item 2A, which is mine, Doc 12-05003, and was had been the topic of conversation day with public comments. As you know, we had an order previously that we went back and the BCP filed a petition for reconsideration rehearing order, which resulted in a stipulation between the BCP and Nevada Energy. The order here does not accept the stipulation. It does two things. It identifies the rate that would be charged. There's some certainty there, and it is pretty commensurate with what was in the stipulation, even though we did sort of our own estimates as well, and that's set forth in the order. Haven't got to that. Maintaining the continuing excluding the supervisory labor costs associated with the BCP adjustment, as well as modifying the placement of the cost for the truck rolls, and that's also identified in the order. I understand the one concern I had when I wrote the order is the stipulation does go into some detail about how the company and BCP agreed on the analog meter and how it would be implemented, which I think was good information, but I think that partial party stipulations are always fraught with problems. I think we would have to go back to rehearing to address the stipulation. And I think we're at the point in time with this process that it's time that we moved on. And we got the folks on the opt-out list going on the opt-out so that they can get the smart meters off of their house if their smart meters are on there, or get if their analog stays on, the analog stays on, but we get moving forward with this program. I go back to rehearing, we're another 30 to 45, 60 days out, and I think this has gone on long enough. And I agree with the BCP. We have enough in this record to reconsider the order, to make a decision. What we do not have in the record is a specific discussion about analogs. And that's why this order leaves that up to the discretion of the company. Puts information there with regard to particular concern about the acceptance by the customers. Clearly today is pretty good indication for the company. The analog meter is the characteristic, is the meter one that is going to be the most widely used customer acceptance. I have no qualms that the company will make the right decision based on, they've been sitting through this dockets, investigatory dockets, they've been sitting through the hearings, they sat through today. They've been sitting through all of these other things. I'm pretty sure that they understand the right customer acceptance issues. So I have no qualms that we're going to be back here, and now a month from now, a year from now, 6 months from now. I'm pretty sure we've got the solution here. All you folks are going to be happy, I'm pretty sure. And I don't think going back to rehearing, just so that I can put the word analog in this order, advances any interest, other than making this thing last another 1 to 2 months. So, that's what the modified final order does. It does leave it to the company's discretion. They're pretty diligent in reading the order, understanding what it says. And I think that the rates that are identified in the modified final order, even though we sort of came at it a different way than the STIP does, is very commensurate with what was already in the stipulation. So if you have any questions or comments, I'm here.
Okay, Chairman, I'll go first. You actually addressed the questions that I was going to ask. Is one, just simply why not accept the stipulation? And I agree with you with regard to a partial party stipulation. And that's a term of art probably most people aren't familiar with, but that's saying that there's 3 parties in the case, 2 of them can come up with a decision that they bring to the commission. And in this instance, it would be in the favor of those who support the stipulation. But what if it were NV Energy and staff coming forward with something that you didn't want and we ignored the BCP? So based on those procedural issues, I can't support the procedural portion of the partial party stipulation. And I've been maybe not so vocal publicly about my disdain for partial party stipulation, because I think every party needs to be a party to a settlement. With that said, I agree with the content of the stipulation, and Chairman, I agree wholeheartedly with you in that it is in the public interest to get to a resolution right now. Stop these proceedings, get the smart meters off the houses that need to have the smart meters off, replace with the analog meters. And I'll just say, even though I understand why your order doesn't specifically say analog, it says basically I don't think there's an option other than analog based on this. But it's my opinion, and I'll state this to the company and everybody here, it's my opinion that the non-standard meter option is an analog meter. So I hope that's clear enough and consistent with what you've stated, Chairman. I think this is the best resolution to get this solved now, rather than going to rehearing and carrying this out any longer. Because I know people with the smart meters on their homes that want them off, they need some relief, because this has gone on for a very long time. So those would be my only 2 comments, and thank you for trying to come up with a quick solution to a lengthy process, even though it sounds like an oxymoron, but thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, I'd like to say I agree in reading the language that this is the analog solution. However, I disagree with the order as written for several reasons, and I'll state those. First, I believe that BCP has not met the threshold for granting a petition for reconsideration, and especially rehearing. I would specifically in paragraph 21 reference with regards to whether or not they could have asked for reconsideration or rehearing in the investigation I don't think that's a necessary discussion at this point. Investigations are an interesting process, and I'd rather not have any sort of precedent on whether or not they are subject to reconsideration or rehearing. I think that the appropriate place personally is in the ensuing docket if there is a docket to be, that comes out of investigation hearing. Also, with regards to BCP's claims that there was a need for clarification on the monthly rate with regards to the incremental cost of supervisory labor that was removed in the order that was issued on November 27th. They referenced paragraph 20 of the Commission's previous order as Commission discussion. I went back, that's actually not Commission discussion, that's NV Energy's position. And so they are incorrect in stating that there is an inconsistency within the order. The order is perfectly consistent that incremental cost of supervisory labor will be removed. However, nobody knows for sure what those, or the Commission does not know what those numbers are, and you would say that they were estimates at the agenda, because until NV Energy goes back and makes those calculations and makes that filing 5 days after the order was to be issued, that would be when we would know what the actual monthly charge would be, taking that into consideration. I also have a problem with the draft order of paragraph 24. Actually, it's in the modifications, the proposed changes to paragraph 24, specifically the phrase highest level of opt-out customer acceptance. And the problem I have there is that you're deferring to a subset of the customers that are going to dictate essentially what type of meter should be approved. I think that your November 27th order that you had presented and the Commission had actually approved was spot on with regards to non-communicating digital meter. I think that it satisfied all the requirements that the Commission satisfied the requirements to the best of its ability given what is out there. In reviewing the report that came out of docket 11-11-1007, there was a significant amount of information provided by parties demonstrating the inadequacies of analog meters. And specifically, as mechanical meters age, the mechanisms within them start to create drag on the meter and they actually run slower. So, you know, if I'm a customer and I'm only worried about my bottom line, I'm going to love to have an analog meter because I know over time that it's going to get slower and I'm going to pay less. Now, when they,
what an idiot. Come on. And we knew that information?
Typical politician. In the stipulation, nobody's going to would have their existing analog meter. They're all going to get brand new analog meters that have been refurbished. And so they're going to be hopefully registering accurately, but over time they will again register incorrectly. I think the report at page 23 when stated the position that using analog meters as non-standard metering arrangement has the potential to shift costs to customers with modern, more accurate meters, because analog meters can produce a revenue shortfall due to their tendency to run slower over time, failure to register consumption at very low loads, and susceptibility to tampering and theft. I think for those reasons, that's why the Commission did not, at least in my mind, that's why I agreed with the report that analog meters should not be an option. And I still believe in that. I still believe that the Commission's November 27th order requiring non-communicating digital meters is the accurate way, most appropriate way to go. And I will stop there.
Commissioner Noble, did you have any modifications? You had mentioned at the very beginning of your discussion about some changes to the, I kind of got lost a little bit in the actual order on reconsideration. Was there some changes that you're concerned about establishing a precedent?
Yeah, I think if you, paragraph 21, I think you could strike out everything on page 11 and the sentence that ends on the top of page 12, and just to eliminate any sort of precedential value there, and just simply refer to the BCP's identification of supposed discrepancies. And I think that you could still make the argument that there are discrepancies or confusion with regards to the talk about estimates in the discussion, and then there is a press release that unfortunately didn't include the word estimates, I think, anymore, which is probably a internal discussion to have about what information should be in press releases going forward. It's more of just a lesson learned, because I hate to see information that was not part of the record attached to a petition for reconsideration, and specifically something that came from the commission.
So you were saying that we shouldn't have a finding, it's just background?
I think it's background information.
Paragraph 21.
Yes.
Ms. Cohen, do you have an opinion on that?
I think that you could go either way. I think if you want to keep it this way, this is fine. If you want to eliminate the language Commissioner Lowe, because of the president saying, we could do that too.
You know, I think this case is, has got so many parts to it that, and one of the reasons that I was loath to accept the stipulation is because of the partial party stipulation. I didn't want to establish that precedent. Because I think at the end of the day, 3 parties to a stipulation before I can seriously consider stipulation is going to be the applicant, BCP, and staff. So, I mean, if you've got significant concerns about paragraph 21, I don't have a problem eliminating paragraph 21.
Chairman, it doesn't matter to me either way. I mean, I'm still supportive of the order with the clarifications and discussion we had today. So it's your call, it's your order.
Let me go ahead and make a motion, see where we go. I move we grant BCP's petition for reconsideration, deny the petition for rehearing, reject the stipulation, and pursuant to reconsideration, modify the November 27, 2012 order, and issue the modified final order and the order on reconsideration and eliminating paragraph 21.
Second.
And I dissent.
Item 2B is brought to us by Commissioner Noble.
Item 2B is docket number 10-07025, and that's the investigation regarding inter-exchange accounting program